Good morning. Welcome to Retro Toy Princess. I'm Allison Troy. And today we are going to color some Supergirl stuff. We're a few minutes late. Apologies. Forgot to get everything properly set up. So here we are. Yep, exactly. Good morning, Brick. Good morning, Rhea. Good morning, Thanos. Thank you for joining me. Lovely to see you all on this bright and early morning. I did the big Selena video last week, so I thought, why not color some of the Supergirl pages I had printed for last time we did a Supergirl live stream. And I've got my Supergirl storybook to use slightly as reference, mainly for Bianca if I end up getting to this page. So just because I didn't quite remember Brenda Vaccaro's overall look. At this point, Faye Dunaway and Supergirl, I've done both of those a couple times. So I have a general enough sense, but Brenda Vaccaro, not so much. So we're going to start, though, with this one, which is a pretty iconic Supergirl look of her just flying over the city. So, and also it's because I can use my Neo colors to do like the sky and clouds and stuff. Because I quite like using the Neo colors for the water and sky and stuff. So, anyway, just need to tape down. How is everyone's weekend going so far? Oops. Yeah. Oops. Yeah. Let's see. Hello, Mint with Card. Welcome. Let's see. There should be a way to unblock, I think. Rhea, if you're watching, we're working on it. It happens. You know, whatever. No, YouTube is not particularly intuitive as far as how all of this stuff works. So anyway, I'm going to get started while Thanos and Brett try to figure that out. Rhea, if you're watching, we're working on it. Sorry about that. And I'm going to do this as if it's a night sky. I can't remember from the movie if this was at night or during the day. But I think this will look better as night. So I'm going to start working on that. For night, I'm just going to do sort of a low-key gradient thing. So I'm going to start with black down at the horizon. And then I'll move up into like purple and navy, the higher up it gets. And then for the cloud, I'm going to do some pinks and some purples. And that should also help Supergirl in the red and the blue stand out. And then if I do sort of the town sort of in darker colors, it should make her pop a lot more. And obviously, as a beacon for hope and justice, we want her to pop as much as we can in the page. So it was always, to me, surprising this movie didn't do better. I know I sort of talked about it in the Selena video I did about a few of the reasons, but I focus more on, of course, the Selena of it. But I think, a couple of reasons I have always believed the movie didn't do as well as they did dump it at the end of the year. And even though now holiday movies are a big time for something like Supergirl to get released back in the 80s, Christmas was not, this was when you dumped all the movies you thought were bombs. Because at Christmas you were with your family, you weren't going to a movie. I wish there probably are actually Selena coloring books. There are quite a few celebrity style coloring books. None that, for instance, I would consider buying, but there was like, last time I was in Portland and went to Powell City of Books, there was like a Jason Momoa coloring book somebody had done, and it was just kind of a bunch of pages of Jason Momoa hanging out, and there was a, oh gosh, what's his name? Nicolas Cage, which definitely I was not going to buy because Nicolas Cage is one. For me, Nicolas Cage is like the Phil Collins of music, of movies. Although Phil Collins did act in a couple crappy movies as well, so Phil Collins is also the Phil Collins of movies. And for those who love Phil Collins, it's okay that you have terrible taste. He sold a lot of records, so you're not alone. He sucks. But I did like. There is one song I like by Phil Collins. It's the Against All Odds song. Also, that I liked that movie, and it wasn't until I was older that I realized why I liked that movie. It was pretty sexy, I thought. Jeff Bridges and Rachel Ward when they were both young and hot. I was very young, so of course when I watched it I couldn't quite figure out that component, but I rewatched it in my 20s when I worked at Blockbuster. It was one of my free rentals. I was like, oh, I get this now. So, oh, the 80s. I'm now going to go in with this darker navy blue. You know, I tend to, so that I can get a gradient and overlap color the way I like. I will overlap when I'm putting the color down. That way when I start putting the water in, it will sort of blend together better. And I do have the doc music that comes free with StreamYard. If it gets too loud, please let me know. I have been having a hard time the last couple of weeks with, in all cases, complete like silence. You know, now that we're not in a city, it gets really quiet here, which is nice at sometimes. But I'm so used to being in a more urban area that being in a more rural setting is a little off-putting to my senses. So it's the middle of the day. It's completely quiet. It wakes me out. So it's because even when I grew up in Louisiana and Texas, it was in areas where even though we were in the country, there were a lot of sounds still. So like in Texas, I was right next to a military base, so there were always like helicopters flying over and, you know, all the things. And then in Louisiana, we were right on the Gulf Coast, the Gulf of Mexico, if you will. And, you know, so there was always sort of the sound of the ocean and seagulls and 18-wheelers going by on the nearby highway bringing in goods to our little rural area from all across the world. So yeah, like being in a nice, quiet, tiny town is very quiet on the weekends, especially. I gotta have something in the background. I mean, Matt and the cats are here, but Matt has his headphones on and is playing games right now. And we're entering the phase of the day where the cats are asleep. So, and even have them running up and down the halls playing and being nonsensical. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it to me too, like, but that's, you know, like I was, because I released sort of that She-Ra video, like there were 5 pages that I released, and they were the first 5 pages I filmed ever. And I had just been, you know, like trying to figure out how I was going to do them, and then I'm like, I'll just do them as color and chill for the 40th anniversary. And as I was editing them, like the full-length file, because I film those in full length. I don't do those time-lapse. And then I speed them up. And some of those files, there was one of them that was like 7 hours for a really basic page that would not take more than an hour and a half, 2 hours now. And it's just, I do this so much now that it goes really quick, especially if I know what I want to do. When I do a color and chill video, those pages can take all day. You know, still take 7 to 8 hours, but that's because I don't always, or sometimes I'll spend an hour or two being really exact with what I want to plan out and then practicing certain techniques. So those can take longer, but for the most part, I've just gotten it down enough that it goes pretty quick. So, and this one will probably go pretty quick because there's, well, until I get to all this stuff. It's one of the reasons I do like using these water-soluble crowns. Is because I can do a background a lot faster than if I were doing it with just pencils. So. And this is where sort of some black and navy will start mixing up. Try to get that all in there. I'm finally getting over my cold. There will still be a few sniffles today because it's at the very tail end of it. So I apologize if any of those slipped through. Last time it was sort of still in the place where I was able to just mute because it was going to be, it was loud and regular, but now it's just little sniffs. So I'll try to catch those. I did finish most of, I still have to do a final edit, but I do have a flip through completed and a page I colored from the DC style. Well, I didn't color it in the style guide, I scanned it and then I did a little editing to turn it into an actual coloring page. But hopefully if I can get everything edited after stream today, I'll be able to drop my color guide, the DC style guide, full flip through and then coloring on Wednesday. So, and if I do that, I'll do like a premiere and channel for everyone. Also going through it, it's not complete. There are some pages missing that I've seen over the years. One or two I've got pictures of from the internet. For some people, not tremendous, but one of the ones for sure is a Supergirl page. The style guide has her costume with the headband they made for the movie and they didn't use. But that was the 1983 style guide update pages. Originally, the style guide had her in the hot pants and the blouse. And I have a scan of the original hot pant page. So that's really the only thing that might take a while is for me to do a voiceover of what I see that's missing based on, and hopefully I can, because if I can find all of the files of what's missing, I'll drop scans as part of in the video itself. I mean, it's as complete as we're probably going to get, and it's affordable as it's going to get. Like, before shipping, it was like $95, and if you run into them complete on the internet, on eBay or anything, they go for hundreds. Like hundreds. I saw one go at one point. It was in really nice condition for several $100s. And then some people will sell just the individual pages, and those will go for $30, $40. So if you're at all interested in the style guide, regardless if it has a couple missing pages or not. It's the most economical and the best quality, because again, it was not printed on, you know, this is on really high glossy nice paper, and the original ones are not quite high quality. It was just like a 3-ring binder with pages in it. All right, let's see. Hello, Radical Toys. Welcome. Nice to see you. It's been a while. Derek Hoover. Welcome, sir. Lovely to see you on this Sunday. Thanks for popping in. I know you got stuff today, but I appreciate you popping in to say hello. Oh, and then, of course, just in time, Gady's Toys. Hello, Andrew. Everyone, if you have not watched it yet, Andrew dropped a really good MIA Ladies of the 80s on Superpowers, the Super Family, yesterday. And I will say, now that his video has dropped and my Selena one has dropped, I did check in with him to see when he was roughly planning to release that one, so I could drop Selena close to it, to help with the synergy of it all. Because I've noticed, based on my algorithm, when I was looking for the DC style guide, because I watched a couple flip-throughs and video reviews of it, because I wanted to make sure before I dropped, because again, that's a lot of money to drop on the book. And I know I say that and I've spent more than that on vintage stuff, but I'm that weird collector where it's like vintage thing from, 40 years ago, $100, yeah. Brand new book that just came out, that's a lot of money, guys. So it's a weird mentality. I need to get over it, but so I did a lot of research before I picked it up, because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just, the same 2 or 3 pages. The pages I wanted the most. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't the same 2 or 3 that I already had acquired really nice high resolution scans of, because that's definitely, I've for the couple of years now been to the place where I don't collect things just to have it. It needs to actually fulfill like a real need, not a like I'm not just, like I have a Blu-ray player. No, I don't just upgrade all of my DVD and VHS, because I got a VHS player still. It needs to be either my VHS tape is, and this is true because VHS is super old now, but it has to be like the tape is on its last legs or it's degraded so bad. And as far as I'll buy something DVD before I'll buy a Blu-ray, depending on price and what the bonus features are. Like some things I upgrade, I bought Blu-ray to get the Friday the 13th box set, because that's how I decide to get in on a new platform. I bought my DVD player once they released the first 4 Friday the 13th movies on DVD, so I was like, okay, now. So I got those, Jaws 2, and a couple seasons of Sex and the City, and a bunch of Dario Argento films. I'm like, okay, I've got like 15 DVDs. I have a player now. I'm set. And then I bought the Blu-ray because I was like, okay, box set Friday the 13th that has everything ever released on any DVD set. I'm in. And also I got Angel, my horrible favorite exploitation movie of the 80s with Donald Wilkes, and Beastmaster on Blu-ray. Because again, you gotta have your priorities. Rewatch Beastmaster this week and you haven't yet. Maybe I'll tonight after everyone's done streaming. If I'm still editing, maybe I'll put Beastmaster on for a little bit. Doesn't get much more. Doesn't get better than Mark Singer in the loincloth. Alright, let's see. Yep, I could definitely turn the music down a little. Is that better, Brick? Oh, Twad. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, it was, yeah. We bashed Todd a couple of times now. I mean, you know, we're not, I mean, Andrew kind of buys everything, so I can't necessarily even say that, but we're not, I mean, like, we have really limited sort of collections, and, Agent Superpowers is something the three of us chat about a lot, so it makes sense that that's what, we would get on the internet to talk about. We're not one of those channels that will just talk about anything because it's controversial and people are talking about it. We're also not the type of channel who's going to imply that people, the Power Girl figure only sold out because she has big boobs. So, and yeah, that was a direct, but whatever. I'm going to go with it's called Periwinkle Blue. And as I think you can see, this is actually less of a blue and more of a lavender. So I'm going to assume that because Caran d'Ache is originally, it's a French company, obviously, and I'm going to assume that some of the color names don't translate well, because there are a few where it's questionable, like what they're, like this is lilac, and this is a really, in my opinion, more of a sort of dark purple than a lilac. So lilac, I would actually call this lighter purple lilac before I would call this a lilac. But hey, it's France. They gave us croissants. I can forgive a few bad translations of color names. Although this is lilas, so it's lilac. Maybe lilacs are different in France than they are in the US. Maybe everything we've been taught about the color lilac is wrong. So, anyway. But yeah, so. Well, exactly. And like, there's a dearth of great characters. So. I bet they would call you that at the Eagle. I think it's funny, every city I know has an Eagle. Like, is it a franchise? I've been to 5 or 6 different Eagles in 5 or different states, and every time it's the same vibe, except one time. In the Midwest, I went to a bar called the Eagle, and it did not pass the vibe check for being called the Eagle. Okay. I guess everyone needs a place to drink. Okay. Yeah. But I do wonder if they're a franchise or something, because it's just, you know, it's a very specific clientele. Let's go back in with this periwinkle blue. It's actually a lavender. A little bit more here in these clouds. Here. Some great photographs in this book. Back in the day when every movie that came out had like a storybook, if it was geared toward a certain audience. I'm just wondering if it doesn't look like this, because this is a scene from the movie. I was just going to double check to see if there were any references for the buildings. But there's not. Sorry. And that's it. I'm sure they will be fine. one of my sort of low-grade, long-term content plans is to get a bunch of these pages from the Supergirl movie colored, and then sort of putting together the story of Supergirl. I know it's a little cheesy, but I don't know. I enjoy doing slightly cheesy stuff. But it would be a good way to talk about the phenomena of these storybooks, because it is something that doesn't really happen anymore. Every so often a storybook will pop up. You know, I'll go to the be like in the toy section, looking for adult collectibles in the toy department. And I'll just check out their coloring book and book section, and every so often, like I think the Buzz Lightyear movie, I almost called it a Toy Story movie. I'm pretty sure I saw a Buzz Lightyear storybook. But like, you know, other than sort of that, I didn't see any of the storybooks like for any of the the sequel movies from Star Wars. And a big part of Star Wars for me as a kid were those storybooks. You know, the storybook was how a generation of kids thought that the big Dark Lighter scene in Tashi Station was actually aired at one point, because they had a bunch of stills of that scene in the storybook, because the storybook was put together before that final edit that they cut him out of. And so it's really interesting that it's sort of cited as the Mandela effect, but it's just everyone misremembering and mixing up that storybook. And it was also in the Marvel comic book, so it's like between the two places, getting the same and the actual photographs, people actually thought, oh, it was an unreleased scene that, you know. I think somebody tried to convince me one time that Big's Dark Lighter scene was played on HBO the first time HBO played Star Wars, and I was like, no, it was not. And the reason I know that is because we watched it the first time it was on HBO. It was a big deal. We went to my grandparents' house to watch it because they had HBO. And I remember asking, why is the big scene not in this movie? And so, because I thought I had seen it at the theater the last time we went and saw Star Wars. But we didn't. It was just, again, misremembering. Because our memories are pretty fluid in some ways. So, yeah. Me? What am I doing at I like to go to places where it's like I'm gonna have a good time. You would be surprised on how left alone you get at a bar like the Eagle when you're not, you know, not what they're looking for. You can just sort of sit there and have a good drink and people watch and befriend people. Yeah, and sometimes you can dance, and again, like you can dance and it can be fun, and it's not a thing. I recommend everyone go to a bar at some point in your life to have a couple drinks where you're not what's on quote unquote on the menu, so that you can just sort of enjoy the evening. Just enjoy the evening free of anything other than just having a good time and enjoying your evening. Let's do that. There was a point about, 2011. Yeah, 2011, I was unemployed for a while. And I would go to my favorite restaurant in Portland, Tapalaya. It was a Vietnamese Cajun fusion restaurant. The chef, Anne, was my friend. She is Vietnamese American, because she, you know, like her parents were Vietnamese. There's a big Vietnamese culture in Louisiana. A lot of Vietnamese refugees ended up in Louisiana. One, there's a military base, and two, a lot of the Baptist churches back then helped sponsor families who were trying to escape Vietnam. But anyway, so Chef Anne had moved up here after Katrina, because she lived in New Orleans and was a head chef, and she did Vietnamese Cajun fusion. Oh, it's great food. If you're going to New Orleans anytime soon, let me know, because she still does pop-up restaurants. She's moved home, and I'll get you the info of wherever her pop-up is that week. Because her faux burritos, where she takes, like faux and makes it into burritos. She does a crawfish etouffee nachos. Like, that is like the best plate of food in the world. But anyway, I would go when I was unemployed, and I would spend about $30. And at the time, martinis were $2 during happy hour. So I would go with like $20, and that was enough to get a couple plates of food and 5 meals. And I would sit there, and I would have my sketchbook, and I would have my notebook where I was, working on my stories, or the novel, depending on what I wanted to work on. I would just sit there by myself. I mean, I would talk to the wait staff, but I didn't have people come and meet me. And I would just sit there and drink and people watch and have food and write or draw. That's actually the last time. That was when I was, I don't know. I should see if I still have all the notes for that. Because I was going to try to do a comic book. Should see if I still have all those sketches. I know I have all those sketches, but I should see if they're handy and start digging them out. Because it would be fun to do something with those. Some of those characters I made like in middle school. And they have, at this point, 40 years of headcanon? So. And unlike DC Comics, I've never had to do a reboot. And so. Actually, that's not entirely true. I had a story in my made-up comic book that basically was riffing on comic book companies and their constant reboots, and how they never actually really work at anything other than muddling and confusing stuff. And that was before we'd had 3 more Crises and New 52 and all the rest of it. And so, there's also some cheese in there, like making fun of how anytime back in the day, whenever a female character got too powerful, she went mad with power and changed it all. I've been trying to get better at my drawing and trying to unlearn my bad stuff. So hopefully I could be my own artist for some of it, and then work with an artist for others. Now's the time. It's a good time for everyone to be really creative and start working on your art. Lafayette is really close to where Lafayette is. I have friends who have moved to Lafayette in the last few years, and I used to go to Lafayette for. They had a really good mall, and keep in mind when I lived in Louisiana, I was in my prime share from Clueless phase of my life, so it was a lot of shopping and but I was also working at Blockbuster, making a lot of money, and I didn't have a lot of bills, so on your day off, you would get up early and drive to Lafayette. Wait. Let's drive to Lafayette, y'all, so we can go shopping at the mall. Because, Louisiana accent is Lafayette. We could go get some gator balls over there and then have a little lagniappe. I can't say it right because I've been practicing this week not having my southern accent. So, but yeah, it's a very vibrant Vietnamese. I mean, because once both grandparents were in military families, I was very fortunate to grow up around a lot of Vietnamese, Korean, and Filipino people. Because, for reasons. I knew a lot of people who had a mother who was one of those 3 nationalities and a white dad. So, Oh, cool. I'm caught up on. Yeah, I want to draw some of it myself, but I also do want to work with artists. I think I think one of the things I have, as I sort of have, especially when I was ironically working on the Selena video, and I had to go back through my comic collection for all of the Enchantress and all of Supergirl's various rogues galleries, I was realizing one of the things I often really liked, especially when I was collecting, you know, building that back issue collection of Supergirl and Wonder Woman, was unlike Superman, who, you know, like in Batman, who it was like, you know, Batman was Jim Aparo and Neil Adams, you know, for a certain phase, and whoever would come in after that was often sort of mocking, you know, like trying to do that same style. And in the 60s, it was like Carmine Infantino. And then DC for just years was Superman was Kurt Swan. And if you were an artist drawing Superman, it was in Kurt Swan's style. It wasn't until sort of the 80s when Jose Luis Garcia Lopez and George Perez sort of started doing a lot of the characters that suddenly you started breaking away from more of the house styles. So, which is a long way of saying Supergirl and Wonder Woman, because their publishing history was full of like, oh, sales are down, we need to change it, let's get in a new artist. There were a lot of different artists that worked on those books. And it was really sort of cool to see that variance, you know, and like all the different takes on characters. And, you know, it's also really cool when you, you know, like for Wonder Woman especially, where there would be like a big stretch where it was Jose Delbo or Don Heck. There's a really nice chunk in the early 80s of issues where Gene Colan was the main artist on Wonder Woman. And he's not really an artist that you would normally, you know, like he was perfect for like Tomb of Dracula at Marvel. But he's not really an artist I would associate normally with a character like Wonder Woman, because, you know, he's just a very sort of dark artist, but it really worked. Especially, I think some of it was sort of the stories that Roy Thomas was telling at the time. He brought back Dr. Psycho, and they had Blockbuster from Batman. You know, they had an ancient Amazon warrior who was the skeleton with the sword and shield, who was the ancient Wonder Woman. So, like, you know, like they leaned into what his strengths were during that run. But because, you know, sales were always all over the place, Wonder Woman and Supergirl often got really different artists over time. It was just really cool seeing all those different takes. You know, which is to say I would like to work with artists on what I've got, just so that it's not quite so homogenized. So, yeah, and that we, luckily, thanks to the way sort of social media works with comic artists, you know, like a lot of them will do commissions, and if you pay them, they will do original characters. So, yeah, and they're also, you know, sort of not professional artists. Yeah, i.e. professional that they've worked for one of the comic book companies, who also work, you know, like do commissions. So it's kind of got some plans. And with any luck, I'll get to it all soonish. But yeah, that's kind of one of the ideas. I mean, I would do it on a separate channel. Just so that it could have its own space. But yeah, at some point it would be nice to get all of that happening, because, like I said, I've got 40 years of stories in my head. And like 40 years of stories that go from like 1917 to, well, now 2026. So like there's an entire, you know, like a whole run. There's World War I stories, World War II stories, Korean War, Vietnam War, Gulf War II. So, alright, so that's all the real color part. So we finished the clouds and the skies. Oh, hello. Exactly, they would. Kurt Swan, yeah, they would go in and, you know, if an artist couldn't mimic the style, they would drop in Superman's head that he had drawn. So I think they did that to, I want to say Neil Adams, I could be wrong, one of his early Superman issues. But I've got a few books that have that, and it's really, really odd, especially when, you know, like the rest of the book is in a different style, but then Superman's face for the close-ups, it's Kurt Swan paste. And so he had a gorgeous style. I can see, you know, and his style worked really well for Superman, I think. It's funny, like one of the artists I support on Patreon is Colleen Doran. And Kurt Swan was one of her sort of mentors when she started in comics in the 80s. And her style has like just a hint of it. And I had forgotten about that. And she posted something on, I think, Blue Sky. And I just commented, I'm like, wow, I can see a lot of sort of, you know, like, this reminds me a lot of like Kurt Swan. And she's like, he was one of my mentors that I worked with. And I'm just like, oh, wow. Yeah, that's not something I would have picked up on even 20 years ago, you know, just sort of the subtleness of it. But hopefully now that she is finished with the last, she's wrapping up the Good Omens graphic novel from the Kickstarter that she worked on with the family of Pratchett and He Who Shall Not Be Named. Hopefully she'll be able to get back to her actual comic work, A Distant Soil, and wrap that story up. So I'm excited for that because I've been reading that since like the 90s when it sort of made its proper debut. So, all right, so that is all of the sky, and the rest of it I'm going to do just with pencils. And of course, we're going to do Prismacolor. So I'm going to get the big case for this today. And the color I want is not in the big case, so I need the smaller case to get the color I want. I'm going to start with yellow chartreuse. I'm going to use that for these tree bushes, whatever they're supposed to be, as well as all of what right in here, what I'm going to assume is grass. So. There it is. Agreed. I really like that as well, Zach. Hello, Stanley. Welcome. Lovely to see you. Thank you for popping in. It's very heartbreaking for a lot of reasons, especially because it's not, especially his comics work, because it's not just, you know, again, everything of his has been collaborative that's in comics. Like, so when you buy Sandman, Colleen Doran is getting some royalties. Every artist that worked with him on those gets royalties. The editors, the colorist, the letterer. Even though they've recolored all of those, the original colorist still gets a small portion of like royalty. Like, you know, for somebody like Colleen Doran, the fact that a lot of her back catalog and a lot of the royalties that, you know, sort of were meant to be her retirement are now sort of not, you know, these books are all going to start going out of print. So there are a lot of sort of elder comics creators who worked with that person, whose livelihood is also going down the drain. So it's really just, it's a messed up situation because like there's no good way to yeah, there's not, like, there are no easy answers as far as, like, like, let the punishment fit the crime, yes. But at the same time, this person now takes people down with him who did nothing wrong and had nothing to do with the vileness. So, I don't know. I have been struggling a lot with it. Again, not a huge he who shall not be named fan myself, but a big fan of many of the artists and co-creators he worked with over the years. So it's just one of those situations where it's like, nothing we do fixes it, and nothing, nothing is. I will say that I did go and buy a few things that he and Colleen Dorn worked on together last week. And I bought them through, like, her affiliate link so that she'll get a little extra, just because, like, yeah, I mean, every little bit helps. We have to support the artists that we do like, sometimes in defiance of the ones we don't. And will he get a few bits and cents of royalty? Yeah, but so will she, and so will everyone else on those books. So, I don't know. It really just, especially when it's like, sort of a dude who is victimized primarily, i.e. women. It's even worse than when a lot of the people that he's taking down with him are also women. Are groups right now who have other things happening, that this is the last thing they need on their plates in the face of everything else. So, anyway, fuck that dude. Well, and that's my one F word for the day. So, hey. Yeah, I agree. Somebody tried to compare the two, and I'm like, it's not apples and oranges. Again, I think a lot of the people, there are two camps of people comparing this issue. Three. Number one are the people who are just doing false, like, straw man arguments, so we can discount them because a straw man argument isn't real. Number two are the people who don't understand how comic book creation works, so they just assume he's the author, that's that. He doesn't understand that it's like, you send the script to the artist, and the artist may have input, and the artist might change a few things, and at this stage of his career, that's not going to happen. But in those early Sandman books, the artist 100%, because in the first few issues, those artists were bigger names than he was. So, of course, if they have some feedback, the editor, like, really helps guide a comic book. So early Sandman was Karen Berger, who, did a lot of, she's the one who created the entire Vertigo imprint at DC. Like, she is, there's no way Karen Berger wasn't like, yeah, this is not going to cut it. What if you tried this instead? Like, the little bit of royalty Karen Berger gets, like, from her contribution, like, that's gone too. And, like, she championed a lot of really important works at DC. Yeah, so there's the camp that's just making up straw man arguments. Screw them. They're not worth the time or the effort. The people who don't understand how comic books work. And then there are the people who are going to defend him no matter what. And those people I discount as well. If you can't accept that, the whole, if you love it, you should still continue to love it. It's like, but yeah, there is an impact of that. It's like Roman Polanski, like, he's a terrible person who did a terrible things. I'm able to be sympathetic toward him because, as somebody who studied the Manson family intensely, I did a couple research papers on them. And when I was taking psychology classes with an eye toward maybe becoming a psychologist, I spent a lot of time studying how cults work. With sort of the focus being on the Manson family. So I've done a lot of research on them. And Sharon Tate, I'm a fan of. She has a very small, obviously, body of work, but I'm a huge Sharon Tate fan. And just sort of, it's one of those things where like you discover her as you're doing it, and you're like, wow, she was kind of cool and really amazing and deserved much better out of life. So there's a layer of sympathy toward Roman Polanski because something really terrible happened. It doesn't justify the shitty stuff he did. It's not an excuse. It's a reason to have some compassion for him, but it's not an excuse for what he did. Rosemary's Baby remains one of my favorite movies, and I've had a really hard time letting go of Rosemary's Baby. I still watch that sometimes. I don't watch his other stuff. I don't have the connection. I didn't see Chinatown for the first time until like 2018, because it was the year before lockdown. So like 2018, early 2019. And I appreciate the artistry of that. The performances, I could, like I see why Faye Dunaway was so renowned. Again, sort of bringing it back to Supergirl. Like, obviously Polanski has been in my head as I worked on that video. Because of Chinatown. I didn't rewatch Chinatown as part of sort of my research for the video. I rewatched several of those other movies she was in. I didn't rewatch Chinatown. Great movie. I understand why it's considered what it is. I think it remains sort of a high mark of new Hollywood cinema of the late 60s, early 70s. I think Polanski was a great filmmaker. But for me, there's no way, because I have no emotional connection to that movie, that one's really easy to like, well, it's a great movie, it's well made. I'm okay not having that in my life anymore. Rosemary's Baby, not as much, because I remember watching that as a kid. It was one of my first horror movies I was allowed to watch. And it's a really well put together movie. It's well acted. It ties into sort of the cult research I did for a while there, because that movie's about a cult and how the cult dynamic shapes and moves things. I don't recommend Rosemary's Baby to people. I don't tell them you should watch this movie. It's a great movie. I don't do that because it carries baggage. If they haven't seen it yet and they don't have the connection, like why have them watch it? So doesn't mean to a degree that we're throwing that film away. It means to a degree I am. But that's my thing. So exactly, Zach. So yeah, it's really, and I think it's really personal. And I think I'm saying what I have appreciated about the Neil Gaiman situation is that for the most part, I've seen a lot of really well thought out arguments, none of which are going to ultimately sway people. But there's at least some really good conversation I've seen happening, which is frankly something that's often lost when, sort of with cancel. I hate saying cancel culture because but sort of the way the idea of cancel culture works, like nuanced conversations often don't happen. It's this person did a bad thing, we're done with them, and that's the end. If you disagree, you're wrong. And what I have seen with Neil Gaiman is people having some really thought out arguments and discussions and just thinking about it. Like, it's not, except for of course always the straw man and the forever, like, he can do no wrong fans, everyone's lying. It's like, it's just, and people who have made a thing so much of their identity they can't let go of it, that's also cult-like behavior. So unfortunately, if somebody is in a cult, they have to get out of it on their own. You can't, you're not going to talk somebody out of the cult. You're not going to be like, well, like, here's common sense. They have to get burned by it enough that they want to get out. And that's usually they have their own awakening. It sounds very selfish, but usually because something happens where they personally are impacted and they are personally victimized, or somebody they truly care about is victimized in a way where it opens their eyes. And that's usually how it works. So it's like if somebody is sort of culty in their approach to something like the no gaming thing, you're not going to argue them out of that. You're not going to talk them through it. What you want to do is have your reasonable, your thought out conversation about it and hope they hear it and it gets in there and then eventually sinks in. But you're never going to convince somebody in a cult that they're in a cult or if they're thinking poorly about it. You just have to have the conversation and not make it personal to them, so they don't feel attacked, because once they feel attacked, they're going to dig in. So you have your reasonable conversation about it. You be as no matter how passionate and angry you are, just be really reasonable about it. And don't make it that they have to change, because they're not going to change, they're going to dig in. So it's my recommendation if you want to have conversations and change people around things like the no gaming situation. You can't do it, but you can eventually over time plant the seed that will help them see the light. So anyway, enough about that nonsense. Oh my gosh. I'm hoping this Wednesday when I go do my grocery shopping that I can find her locally. Well, one, what I'm going to say is I have never said that. I just don't, you can talk about politics. You just don't talk about politics. I think everyone wants to talk way too much of politics without actually talking about politics. Oh, nice. Well, she's not, I don't think she's going to be hard to find. She's hard to find right now because they're actually, if I remember correctly, the street date is not supposed to be until I think the 23rd of this month. So the ones showing up now are technically early. 23rd is a Sunday, so probably not the 23rd. Maybe the 25th is technically when they're supposed to start. The gem doll is supposed to hit, if I'm remembering the article correctly. So right now, it's just the first few boxes are hitting. So my guess is in 2 months, you'll be able to find her fairly easily. That's sort of the same thing that happened with the loyal subject, Strawberry Shortcake and Rainbow Bright. Like the first 2 months, you could not find them, and then they were plentiful. And I think both of those you can find the first issue of the 5.5 Strawberry Shortcake and Rainbow Bright. Those are, when I looked about 2 or 3 weeks ago, those are both on Amazon, fairly reasonably priced. And I think it'll be the same with Gem. I think once we, and also right now she's still technically an exclusive. Once she's no longer a retailer exclusive and other places can offer her, she'll be easier to find then as well. So far, all of the retailer exclusives, once that window closes, Big Bad Toy Store and Entertainment Earth have been getting them. So, with any luck, if I don't find her when I'm out doing my errands on Wednesday, she will pop up sooner rather than later. But it's good for her to sell out these first few weeks because it means she's selling well and it gives us a better chance of the loyal subjects giving us the rest of the holograms and the misfits. And hopefully we get synergy. Because it'd be really cool to get synergy. There we go. Yeah, and they're really good. Like, I'm really impressed with I know some of the previous lines they've released, people have said weren't so great. And possibly some of their action figures have not been great, which makes me vaguely concerned for when they do mask. But for the Strawberry Shortcake and Rainbow Bright stuff, the quality has been really good. And so even the like little $5 chibis that they have at Five Below have a remarkable amount of paint apps for the price point and the size of those. So some of them, in my opinion, are better quality than the vintage Kenner miniatures. I mean, they're a little bit bigger as well. So yeah, I would like Rio. I would like them. I'm hoping the response is good enough that they give us, you know, like Rio, Synergy, all of the side characters. And then I forget what was the name of the band in the 3rd season. Oh gosh. But they were all like yellow. They were like blonde and yellow and sort of metal. So hopefully those pop up too, because I would just like a way to get a full range of gem in the hologram. The stingers, exactly. Thank you. Yes, I would like all of them. I don't know that I need the Starlight, you know, like the orphans or whatever, but I don't know that I don't need the Starlight Girl orphans. So surprise me, loyal subjects. Alright, so I'm gonna do the water now. I think that's water. We're gonna assume that's water and not a street. Yeah, and so this is just one of my techniques for doing running water. And that is muted turquoise. It's a quieter, less talkative version of turquoise. And this is light cerulean blue. Right, and now I'm going to go with cobalt turquoise, which is much darker. But again, this is sort of the secret I have found to running water is to layer it with a bunch of different colors very loosely, and then go over the top with another blue. And then some light aqua. I need to show you this first though. Kenny is not here, but if he were, he could see that I've been using this washed out olive jar for pencil shadings. Because I recently brought out the olives. And then I heard the lady down the street start screaming, so my work is done. Exactly. Right? I never, okay, so this is a quick gem side. I never understood the purpose of those orphans. Like, it seemed like just too much. Like, I just never to me worked that, like, there are these kids living there. Obviously it was sort of that old thinking, like, kids need somebody to relate to. I don't think I did as a kid. Like, I never felt, like He-Man and Masters of the Universe and She-Ra didn't really have kid characters in the toy line. And every so often, they, like Lee Scheimer has said in interviews, Orca was there for the kids to relate to. And I'm like, I kind of can see that one a little bit more. But, like, actual kid characters, not so much. I mean, based on how he was written, Rio would be, like, most kids could probably relate to Rio because he was obviously... Because I will say, like, the whole glasses, eye makeup, a wig, like, it can definitely change people's perspective and make it hard to sort of... The Clark Kent thing works to a degree until the point where he makes out with somebody as Clark Kent, and then that person, aka Lois Lane, makes out with Superman and doesn't recognize them. Like, there's just a point where you recognize people. And the fact that Rio kind of kissed both Jen and Jerrica, like, makeup and hair doesn't go that far, peeps. And so that was where that's the only place my suspension of disbelief. And partly because I wear glasses now, but I didn't always. And after I started wearing glasses, I've had a few people who didn't recognize me at first. And then I was like, it's me. And I took my glasses off and they're like, oh, okay. So we laugh at it, but it's a thing. So, all right. I added some Mediterranean blue on top of that. I think our river is as good as it needs to get. We can do some buildings now. So I'm going to do a thing I do with Batman, ironically, where I tend to do the buildings like in oranges, golds and oranges, just because I feel like that works pretty well. I like sort of the contrast of it. Not particularly accurate for a night sky, but it's a comic book based thing, so we can get away with some comic book techniques. So. I'm just going to use lemon yellow to go over the whole thing. I'm going to go in with the other color and do the shading. Kenzo, did you miss the olives, but really quick. This is where my pencil shavings go. I'm gonna lean more into the motherly quality thing, but whatever, it was stupid. Right, it's all in her head, none of it's real. And if anyone watches Family Guy, but there's the one episode where Lois and Peter do a bunch of substances and they think they've become this big rock group. And like throughout the entire episode, it's sort of like these big sort of music video quality things. And then at the very end, they're performing somewhere. And it cuts to them live and they're just both on the stage sort of being chaotic and drooling and babbling incoherently because they're just in their head because they're on substances, they think that, you know, that they're rock stars, but really they're not. I'm cracking up. Back when I used to watch television regularly. It's been a while. I did, Netflix just got the dramatized biographical Saturday Night Live movie that's like sort of a dramatized version of the first night of Saturday Night Live. It was pretty good, I thought. As somebody who treats Saturday Night Live like some people treat sports, where like every season I pay attention to who's new and who's leaving, and I've seen every, you know, from season one, I've seen every season. Most of them live as they happened. A few of them, like the first 2 seasons, I was way too. I don't know if I can't remember if I was born for. No, I was born for the first season, but I definitely wasn't watching television as an infant. But I've seen most of them. My uncle really loved New York. I mean, loved it, and he moved to New York partly hoping he could one day end up on Saturday Night Live. He did for a while work at the bar that they would go to after a show, so he befriended like Jan Hooks and a few people from that season. His memory was that Victoria Jackson was a bitch, which rings true to this day. So there you go. Jan Hooks was really nice. He, you know, she was his favorite, and she was also from the South, so like they would chat about that. But other than some regional theater and a regional Coke commercial, my uncle never advanced beyond modeling, and then he had a brief tenure where he headlined a go-go show at a club for men. So he was a go-go dancer for a while with little boots and little shorts. So, and that is how he met his partner. They were both dancing and modeling by day. Story tell as old as time, if you will. Barely even friends, and then somebody bends unexpectedly. Anyway. Alright, here's my paint pen. I'm not sure where I put it. Alright, we're going to, oh, haha, it's right over here. Here we go. It's that part of the day. Yeah, I found that I like them quite. I like where they write the jokes for each other sort of at the end of every season. And they try to give each other the worst jokes ever. To me, that's really, I don't know, it's really good. Yeah, she had a character or two that I enjoyed, but I don't think she ever found the right fit for her style of humor, which is a garbage can, basically. So there you go. So yeah. You know, it is. And it's also very rare in this world. So anytime you find love, embrace it, no matter what. All right, so I have this last building. I'm going to, don't really want to do the same thing. So I do want to do the lights, the windows as if they're lit up. So I'm going to use the yellow for that. Oh, I should check the time real quick. Oh, we're at 1 hour and 15 minutes, so that's actually a pretty good time for everything. Yeah, I definitely will be able to finish. Should be able to finish this page, as long as I don't get too fancy with that cape. I'm gonna go in and try to make these windows look like they've got lights on the inside of them. And I'm gonna use the lavender and blues for the building itself. Yeah, that one was hilarious. And see, the thing, I don't particularly care for Scarlett Johansson as an actress, but I think as a person, she's usually pretty funny, so go figure. Well, thank you, Derek. Yeah, Heavy D and the Boys. That was a great song. That was a great time in music, right? I found the box with sort of all the CDs that I didn't sell, because for a while in Portland, you could still, in fact, sell your CDs. I ripped them all to a hard drive, though, before I sold them. And the hard drive, I update every couple of years to a newer one so it doesn't fail. But some things I have retained as actual physical media that I can just pop into my CD player that's over here, well, over there. It won't be over there once I'm in my studio in a few weeks. I don't know where it'll be, but it'll be close. Because there have been a few days where I have been filming stuff and I just turned off YouTube and the internet and popped in a CD. I need to get the Victrola set up so I can listen to Liz Phair, Exile, and Guyville on vinyl. But I'm going to save that for the studio. That's how I'm going to christen the studio when it's like my first time working in the studio is going to be Exile and Guyville, which is the only proper way to christen a studio. I haven't listened to that album in like 3 weeks, which is, I usually listen to it usually on my computer from the ripped files, but I haven't listened to it in a while. And 3 weeks is a lot because I used to just listen to it on repeat. It is good for editing. Somewhere I should set up. When I first started learning editing, I would download videos from YouTube, because you used to be able to do that. And then I would slice them up and make fan videos. I should find a way to host all of that and just like, hey, you guys come watch my Liz Phair fan videos I made in 2016 through, I think the last one I made was in 2018 maybe? And then I kind of lost interest in it. But I made like 30 Liz Phair videos from her various songs and albums, so it's not an insignificant body of fan video time. Every time I would try to put them on YouTube too, they would get pulled down because obviously stolen footage. Oh, before I understood copyright. I think I was a former brand manager of Masters of the Universe. That would be interesting. Well, he can use whatever he wants. Like, I don't ever tell my guests what they can and can't use. So far, I've been lucky, though. I haven't had any guests who colored and it looked terrible. I say that, and then one of my next guests will be terrible. I jinxed that one. It's really hard, though, I think, to color terrible, especially with this, you know, like, if somebody comes on and they're coming to color, like, superheroes or whatever, there's, like, a color scheme already. So it's really easy to not color badly if you're on my channel, because, you know, most people are picking pages where it's a really, you know, like the character is front and center. So as long as they get the character right, everything else is whatever. But yeah, I think a lot of the people, though, there are some people who have been, oh, I'll get back to you, and then never got back to me. I think those are the people who are probably insecure. Most people want to come and hang out and do this, so. Because it's fun. And, you know, it's not like your typical live stream where it's like when we're here, like in the club, we're all fam. When you're here, like the only agenda is we're going to sit and talk and color. So it's not quite like where you have to go on the show and have thoughts and opinions about toy releases or whatever. It's not like Retro Complicated. So anyway, I've been really lucky. So far, everyone has... It's funny because when Muriel would come on, she would mess stuff up, but it was always hilarious because she would just... It was over the top. I asked her at one point, it's like, it's kind of shtick, like, just come on more and just mess stuff up, and then at the end it'll always be messed up. But she's doing well. She's still living outside of the US, so she's having a pretty good life right now. So I need to check in with her. She was talking about coming back for a few weeks and maybe coming to visit, but I don't know if she's going to do that now. She might not be able to get out of the country once she gets here, and she has, you know, a whole life over there, so it would kind of suck for her to come home and get stuck. All right, building is done. Nothing wrong with that. I'm sure he doesn't get that from anyone that you know. I'm completely surprised that you would have a chatty child. All right. Alright, so we've got Supergirl left. Obviously, we're going to do our traditional Supergirl colors. And I'm going to start with the cape. I'm going to use this. This is discontinued Prismacolor Cadmium Red Hue. It's a light fast, which they stopped in the series. All of the colors were integrated. I believe this in the regular Prismacolor line is the Scarlet Red. Yeah, I believe this is Scarlet. It's a nice bright red. It's perfect for Supergirl's cape and the parts of her costume that are red. I bought it like 24-pack of these like 10 years ago. And they tend to last a lot longer than regular Prisma. So I still have like 12 of them. I gave some away to a friend who was doing an art project where she needed a lot of red. There's an art project that she referred to as heavy cycle, if you will. So that hopefully will help you imagine what the project was about. So she made a lot of red. And this is a really nice red, and because it's light fast, it should last a lot longer for the piece that she was working on. So I gave her like 3. And it was mixed media, like it was canvas, but then she was gluing stuff onto it. Should ping her and see if she finished it, because she's somebody who will like work on stuff and then abandon it for like a year or 2 and then go back and finish it. So, and she doesn't share anything on the internet, so should ping her and see if she finished it. See how her heavy flow is going. But I like it because it's really nice, and they're really deep red on it. So. Ooh. Yeah, we should definitely chat, and also I wanted to chat with you about, I think, yeah, commission stuff. So anyway, we've got things to chat about. There is a Bizarro Supergirl. She debuted right before New 52. Before that, there was never a specific Bizarro Supergirl. It was always implied there was one on Bizarro World, because, excuse me, got a sneeze right in the middle of that, because whenever Bizarro stole the Bizarro Ray to make Bizarro World, he made copies of everyone that was on Earth. So there was a Bizarro Lois Lane, Green Lantern, right on down the line. So technically there should have been a Bizarro Supergirl, but so far as I know, the first actual Bizarro Supergirl to show up in comic books to fight Supergirl was right before the New 52. And she was pretty cool. So I think the animated series may have had one, and that's probably where it drew from. I didn't watch the Superman animated series as intently as I did sort of those first 2 or 3 seasons of Batman the animated series. So I'm not as deep on the lore of that. That is on my list of things to watch. Because I'm going to start, doing Villain Obscura. And you never know when there's a villain that might be a good candidate for that. So, I mean, this year is going to be pretty tied up with the She-Ra and Golden Girl 40th anniversary stuff I want to do. That's at least, and depending on how I spread those out, that's an entire year of content. Even if I don't do everyone that I put on my list for both of those things. So, oh, and then I just broke a lead. There's the one problem with these older pencils. They do tend to get a little crumbly. And the light fast ones more so than the others, just because they tend to, my experience of them is they have a little bit more oil in them than normal Prismacolors do. Normal Prismacolors are very sort of waxy and creamy. The light fast tend to be a lot more oil based. So those tend to dry out. So I've had a few of the ones I've had break a lot more easily. So that is just the risk I run to have this specific red pencil that I like the best. And when they're all gone, they're all gone. Well, actually, no, you can still get them on eBay. So I would just have to go buy more on eBay. Right. Yeah, they did. So, and that was what was interesting because up until that point, so far as I know, there was no Bizarro Supergirl. So, when I believe that one's in the issue of Tom Arts that I have. Exactly. Yeah, the first few times I did it, I would give people, back in the day, I would give everyone the warning that it sounds like an electric drill or some such. But at this point, I just don't want. I figure if you've been to a couple of these Sunday streams, you've heard it. I just still say I'm going to sharpen it, though. But I don't, give the whole, it sounds really terrible, guys. Like somebody's being unalived with electric power tools. Slowly but surely. And that was another sneeze. I got that one muted, so. I'm sorry about that. I'm not. Haven't been sneezing and then live stream time, and suddenly here they are. So. There we go. And the light just shifted outside. And I was like, why did it just darken a little? And then I'm like, oh yeah, the light shifted. So I got one of my lights up a little. I don't normally film this early, so I forget the sunlight through the window, because there is a window right there. I forget, because that used to not be the case. I used to have my art table against a wall, facing a wall. So I forget that I have to keep an eye on where the sun is for part of the day. In about an hour, I don't have to. At that point, it's behind stuff. And I'm hesitant to learn it all. If you meet in the studio this time, I have to learn it all again. Oh, life. Always teaching us new things. It won't matter in a couple weeks. go. Come on. It is done. Until I decide to mess around with it a little bit more. But for now. Heads up, pencil sharpener. Alright. And really quick, because I always forget where the red is on the emblem. Quickly pencil it in the red of the S shirt. Without fail, if I don't reference it or look at a figure, I will flip it and do red and yellow reversed. You would think I would know at this point. Alas, yeah. Hello, bot. Welcome. Thanks for popping in. I need to chat so we can do a pre-record soonish. I have a few days coming up that I need to travel, and I still like having something to drop on Sunday mornings for y'all. So. Also, the algorithm gets weird if you don't release on a normal schedule sometimes. I think that's all of the red. Yeah, that should be all the red. So I'm going to go in with this lemon yellow for all the yellow parts of her outfit. Go in with the golden orange. I think this one is Spanish orange, but I don't call it that because I don't think Spanish people actually think orange is this color. So that's golden orange. Alright, and now it's time for the blue of his shirt. And for that, true blue. I spent a little time with the DC Style Guide the other day, trying to match the colors and the color scheme they have. And this true blue is actually the closest to the blue that they reference for Superman and Supergirl's, like the blue components of their outfit. Technically, because it's the blue and gray for era of Batman, this is technically the same blue that they recommend, but I tend to go with the darker blue for Batman. For Superman and Supergirl and Wonder Woman shorts, this is pretty perfect as far as blues go. I think even Wonder Woman, they go for a darker blue. Currently, like in her leather skirt with the star era, but she's in Star Spangled shorts. This is the blue you want. Well, for Prismacolor. Using different pencils will probably run it differently. That is the blue. Right here, it's not super visible, but she has a little bracelet. I'm going to use the silver gel pen for that, and that is in the movie. That's what she's using to track the Omega Hadron. Go ahead and drop that in there for her, so she can have a little silver jewelry. And it's time to do skin tone. We're going to start with eggshell. Hello, Payne. Welcome. Thanks for popping in. Oh my gosh, Crawl is so good. It was one of my favorite movies. It was like Star Wars meets Beastmaster. I was always surprised that movie wasn't like bigger than it. You know, it sort of always felt like it was supposed to be a really big movie. It just didn't hit big. Honestly, I think it hurt that there weren't action figures. Granted, there was a point in the 80s where it's like if you didn't have the toy line, kids were not going to take you serious. Like you needed to go see the movie, and then after the movie was over, go to the toy shelves and get the toys. In some cases, if your mom had seen the toys and purchased them ahead of time, going into the theater, you already have toys, so you already kind of knew a little bit about the movie. And that's the one thing that sort of Disney and other companies sort of miss now. Like, having those toys come out before the movie did not in any way hurt our enjoyment. If anything, it helped us enjoy the movie more going into it to see who this character was. Use some blush paint for her cheeks. Put a little bit on her lip. And I'm going to go in to finish her lip up with henna. And there's a little bit of this red, a little bit of the pink, and then the henna. And that's pretty close to sort of this darker red that they use for most of her. It's not like a scarlet red. They used a really sort of earthy brownish red. They saved the bright crimsony scarlet or red for fades out away. You know, Supergirl for most of it has this brownish red color. So, and it's the basic formula I have looked at for getting that lip color is really light with the dark scarlet and some pink, and then finish it off with henna. They also did not have her wear a ton of eye makeup. They again went sort of with browns to give her almost like a nude look for it. Which of course at this time there was a lot of like, if you wear too much makeup, there was a lot of sort of slut shaming around it. Whereas now there's a whole makeup culture, so we're gonna sort of keep in line with that. Use a really reddish brown for her eye. Okay. And now I'm just going to go in with a peach, and I'm just going to use regular peach. It's a darker shade, and Helen Sater has almost like a golden tan tone to her. So, oh, and then I just dropped it. Oh, there it is. So I think the peach is going to get us closest to what her actual skin tone is. We'll see. And the pumpkin orange I put down right over the eggshell, this should help with that. Yeah, it would be nice. What's ironic is one of the best Supergirl books was the Peter David one, where it wasn't really even Supergirl for most of the book, but you know. Yeah, I think that was the place where Star Wars, where the episode one stuff, there were two different points with episode one. I think that they should have been a little bit more careful. Number one, that double bladed lightsaber. And number two, the Padme Amidala thing. I mean, it's evident from the get go what's going on with that, but I think having sort of the action figure, you know, Wave One has a Padme figure and an Amidala, and they're both Natalie Portman. I think they had just, and again, they released sort of the battle dress from the end of it with her peasant disguise. If they had released the peasant disguise on Tatooine look of Padme, and then like one of her actual queen outfits in that first wave, rather than that battle dress, I think it would have, those two things would have made a big difference. I think in the case of the Darth Maul, it was literally, they're like, we can sell a lot of toys day one with this double-bladed lightsaber. Whereas that, if it had been a surprise at the end of the movie, would have been tremendous. I mean, again, it's really evident from like the get, especially when you know Natalie Portman is playing Queen Amidala, what's going on there. But I think it would have been, for little kids, I think that would have been a bigger surprise. It still was a surprise for some of them. When I went and saw Phantom Menace, like the second day, you know, after the opening night crazies, I went the next day, and there were a lot of kids in the audience, and there were kids who gasped, like, "Oh my God, it was her!" So there, you know, there were kids where it didn't get spoiled, but I think. And for those are the kids who are growing up now who like love the Phantom Menace, and that's the prequels are their favorites because they didn't. But I think for the the older Star Wars fans, a lot of us would have had a much better time with that movie if sort of those two things had been a little bit more secret. So for her hair, I started with cream, and then I'm just going to go in with burnt ochre and sort of tease it out. She has a much darker, she's a darker blonde, so lean into that. Supergirl in the comics is portrayed as sort of like yellow blonde, but I also think that's just sort of comic book, especially before, you know, they could, when it was 4 colors, it's like yellow is what you got. There wasn't a lot of room for, you know, subtle color variations. Yeah, I was one too, but I went like 7. I do every Star Wars movie in the theater 7 times, and I did 5 of the 7 that first weekend. So, right, let's see. It's also it's almost 2 hours. I'm gonna stay, keep going until this is done because we're really close to the end. So I'm gonna finish this page today. So if you want to hang out, that's cool. If you need to get going to go somewhere else, I also get that. And I will post the finished page as always on Instagram. But I'm gonna wrap it up because we've got a couple whips from previous streams where I'm like, oh, we're, you know, like, I'm almost done, I'll finish it later, and then I don't finish it later. So I might do a stream where I work on those pages that are half done and see how many of them I can finish in 2 hours. So. Yeah, I've got the burnt ochre down for her hair. And this is where I'm going to cheat just a little bit with sort of her actual her actual hair color. I'm going to use some yellow ochre, which is a little bit more golden than her hair actually is. But this is like the buildings. This is where a slight bit of artistic liberty is going to be taken. It gets the feel and the vibe of what her hair looks like, and that is more important, I think, than being 100% accurate. One of the things I see a lot in adult coloring where people are going for realism, where it's like it's really real and it looks really nice, but there's not as much, without that sort of artistic liberty here and there, it also doesn't always look really, like it looks good, it looks perfect, but like I think some of the actual fun of art is when you take those little liberties here and there. So not to knock anybody who like wants everything to look precisely like realism, because that's a talent. It takes a lot of hard work to get to that level, so kudos to them. But I personally, for my own self, prefer when it's not quite real. There's just that little bit of the fantasy added. So. Right, and then I'm just gonna do the last little bit in her hair with some goldenrod. Again, it just gives it sort of a gold. Which is sort of closer to what Helen Slater's hair looks like. So, while a little bit of a liberty, it's one that suggests the reality. So. I'm going to use the gold as well to sort of blend out the eyeshadow and sort of the shadow, the shading in the cheek and around the mouth. So again, Helen Slater sort of in this phase had a little bit of a gold tan look. So. And for this last bit, I'm going to use a different white pen. Use one of the grabby ones because it has a much finer point. And this is usually where I mess up pages. You can't tell on shorts because it's sped up, but I can also stop it and go in and fix it. But I'm going to use the white point to put little bits of light in the eye. There we go. So here's the black one. Just a little bit of black for the upper eye. And then the brown for her eyebrow. All right, and there we go. She's done. All right, and that took the full 2 hours. So sadly, we won't get to this page today, but I will have it. It's in the folder. We'll get to it another time. So yeah, that's that. And I'm pretty happy with how this came out. So anyway, like I said, I will take a picture and stick it on Instagram in a little bit. I'm gonna get some lunch first, I think. I thank you everyone who hung out with me today. It is muchly appreciated. Let's see. I have shorts dropping every day this week. Tomorrow there is a coloring book flip through. I have a decent, really quick, let me grab it. I've got a flip through of this book dropping tomorrow. And then I colored a Poison Ivy page that's in this, and that's at the end of the flip through. Time-lapse coloring. And then, if I can finish editing tonight and tomorrow, the flip through and then the coloring from this book. So, this is the style guide. And there's some great stuff in here. So, Yep. So that's this week. Next Sunday, I will probably drop a pre-recorded video. I have been invited onto a Star Wars podcast that is doing Star Wars trivia. So it is about the time I would be here. So I'll probably drop a short pre-recorded video and then do that. And I'll drop all of the information on where to find me for that. So you can pop in and do that. And on that note, thank you everyone for joining me today. Muchly appreciated. I will see you all in the next one and in chats. If you're going to be watching Brick or Adam or Geek Dad Life, I will be in all of those places this afternoon. So anyway, thanks again. Allison Troy, Retro Toy Princess, out.